So I have been working on the artificial intelligence for I think last 4 to 5 years, and been seeing the way it's been changing quite a lot. In my observation, what has been seen there, and as well there are different reports that we see. Many customers are trying to struggle to get the best out of their data, and getting best out of their data means they would have many data sets coming from their traditional systems. They have been working with mainframe. They have been working with the traditionally with the business processes, and now the data has been also transformed in the part of getting the new kind of data sources, I would say, which is coming mostly from the cloud and the enterprises as well. And there's also social media kind of data. So company we typically have a lot of data with them, but they always struggle to get curate them together and get into the right way. There has been a kind of a notion that many of data science projects usually get fails to get production because there has been challenge of they're not able to get the maximizing of the data. The another challenge that we see that many organizations is fail to again struggle with the complexity of the landscape, and everyone talks about that they have their landscape has been pretty silo. There have been some data sets are at one place. There is a finance data is different versus the HR application is working differently, and your CRM has been at a different place. So there has been challenge and talk about that. How does my complex landscape can be get addressed, and most of the customers struggle with that to see to create data, because you can only able to get the good data science experience unless you have been getting your data in the together way and bringing all the data sets aligned at the same time. So many companies has been also struggling to get how does I solve this complexity of data being at the different landscapes. Third challenge that we also see that the many companies has been also giving the importance as a business initiative, and they feel that running the AI project is important, and how does this AI project can be a more operationalized for them, and how this AI project can be make the business transformation, because they have been seeing the quite good transformation journey and confident about the asset that they have could make a difference in their own areas. But at the same time, they're also confident that um, the ability of implementation of AI project is not as high. So you say, yeah, if we start the many AI projects, but many projects get failed at a certain phase, and because of the various reasons that been quoted too. The another challenge is that the compliance part. So typically, as in you see data protection privacy becoming important, the data governance becoming important part there, and also the cost of compliance is as much as $7,000 per employee, and many companies also pay around 14 million to get the annual organization for the experience on data protection or non-compliance problem. So as and when the data that we talk about to bring the any AI project, which is heavy data-driven topic, which also has strong adherence to the compliance, with something companies should be look up to or also understand the fact of. How does we address this problem? So we need to look at for little simplistically to reimagine your business processes that has been put forward to. The first foremostly, you have to get the maximum value of your data, and in order to get the maximum value, you need to kind of make the connectivity to the data set. You need to look at that. How do you transform that raw data into the reusable data set? So everything start with how do you get the value out of your important data sets, and also how the data has been curative and diverse in the form. At the same time, you'd also look at the reusability of the data that you would build up. So there'll be many more aspects where you would have been using the companies or your customer IDs and stuff like that across different data sets. But you look at that, how do you bring them together, and also operationalizing for the machine learning. Second important part is the how do you simplify your data, right? So Data is something which could be the analyzable format. You can able to correlate data across the different landscapes, and also it's important that how you simplify the life cycle of the data for the developers. So is the ones data coming in there, but also at what point of time the data become absolute and the new data would take up on part of it. So it's important that you unify the data, connect the data across your different landscape, and also make the correlation among them, which can be understandable for your development team and define the life cycle for your data as well. Third, importantly, that you look at for how does you can make the machine learning experimentation, right? Because once we have data ready, the second part comes is that how can I create the machine learning implementation, and how does the model comes that I can build up there, and also I can explain the trustworthy of the results, because many times when you build your model and experimentation, it many times happens that you could not able to say that why particular prediction of a model is going in a particular direction, or prediction is talks about the reason for the prediction is not known, and then as well as the trustworthiness of the model goes down. So you need to have something like explainability concept to be implemented, where you could have confidently talk about that the results is right, and that's something which could be correct for that. At the same time, you also look at the automation part of the data. So data has to be the automated, but here in this case we would more look at the how the automation and the scale take in place, so there will be less maintenance for adoption of the AI use cases, rather than you more do the manual work, and at some point of time it's become a pain to the DevOps operation. Fourth and important part is the seamless compliance. So definitely compliance is the important part, and you have to look at how you analyze the data that you're getting, how data will govern within the organization. The right people should have right kind of access to data. So these are some of the things that before you start the project, you need to look at it carefully. You have to also look at how it would be give the benefits. So when we look at the scaling part of the artificial intelligence, but data that you could have and transform the different business processes that could bring up there. So it's not only the data coming from one source, but you'd look at the data coming from IoT. You'd have data available already that your data warehouses, and also how does your business application is getting transformed at the same time. So we'd more focus on looking at how the artificial intelligence, which we like to streamline data, but you have to leverage the data which we have on your traditional system, as well as we have also in your transaction systems as well, and also look at from the BW perspective. So let's look at how we look at the scaling the artificial intelligence data. So typically, so far that what we have seen that definitely the AI has not able to live up to the to hype, because of there is a huge demand for AI that's there in the market. A lot of projects which upcoming, which doesn't get to the success, and there will be different challenges as well. So as we said, there is the complexity challenges, but it's also the huge amount of resource challenges that we see for the AI. Down the line, we see a lot of people getting into the data science and wanted to work also on the AI engineer or machine learning engineer profiles, but still there are a lot more demand that's something coming up going forward. We also see in the areas where the AI is going to redefine the business going forward. So first part is that how do you use the machine learning activity? How does you make the deep learning as well as scaling the AI across your enterprise? And IT is the one process, one place where you are going to see the disruption. This means that image recognition, or you are kind of reimagining your manufacturing process, or you have the huge amount of data which has been coming, which need to be processed, and the predictability on top of it. So that's where you would see that that a lot of model building or AI core functionality could be get adopted. Second important part, which could be getting disrupted, is the intelligent process automation, what we called as the RPA or IRPA. So as already the robots been started working on instead of the humans for many of manual processes, and that's where the RPA plays the work, where the uninterrupted mailbox get monitored, and the bot which is there on your system would take a call whether this particular process flow has to be executed, or what type of next level of automation need to be done, which typically the human would do on the manual way. So there has been disruption happening in these areas, and we'll see that more and more to come in the upcoming days as well. The third part is the interactivity. So we already see a lot been changed with the chatbot been coming in the business. In the COVID situation also, there have been a lot of chatbot being used in multiple places before you react to the or talk to the human, right? Also the personalized experience that everyone like to have their own way of user interface, and the way we nowadays Alexas and Siri has been transforming the world to bring the automation and our day-to-day life. We would see more and more automation happening on the interactivity or the user experience space. So this is the third space that we see the AI is going to be disrupt heavily. Also, there has been a lot of prediction that 93% of the for the critical building the personalized customer experiences, it will be 60% of human tasks will be automated. Yeah, I mean, there'll be a lot more tasks that human could do more intelligently, definitely. But yeah, this is something which coming from the Gartner survey as well. But yeah, there'll also be talk about 3.9 trillion revenue opportunity that enterprise AI market would lead to 2022 as well. And as we see more and more automation coming in picture in these areas. So looking at that, what are the personas are typically involved while we work on the AI project. So look at that more from the enterprise perspective. When we get started to building the AI project, we definitely have CIO, and at this point of time, there are the challenges that each persona would also face when they wanted to work upon them. So definitely CIO is looking at the cost, and many of data science projects are usually bring it to the open source, and I think open source is something the evolving component at the middle of it, and we don't not able to keep the pace with the open source component, and we see that there has been landscape been evolving so fast, and typically there are the challenge of getting the new open source, bringing the data science flow. The third persona is that about the DevOps. So as soon as the mini POCs is developed by the data scientists, they would like to bring them the things into production, and mostly there are not documentation or not supported or the security. So DevOps persona or machine learning operations persona or AI ops persona that we look forward to is not very comfortable for what the data scientist been bringing to put in the production directly, which could comply to the enterprise strategy or the corporate strategy, because if they're using many open source products which are not compliant or has the security flaw or not has a required certification, there's always the chance of something could be leaked out from there. And as well as yeah, I mean, there also need to be have the education and training of the ML ops or the operations people there. So these are the challenges also comes from the across the organizations. So let's before getting into the solution part, understand that what is the enterprise AI that we're talking about, right? So in order to have your enterprise architecture readiness, where we talk about more of the business value than looking at the silo part, same with the enterprise AI is also address the complete enterprise, the end-to-end space here. So for example, when you build a particular POC might be you get some data coming from your Excel sheets that your data engineers are curating and giving to you. Based on that data, you're already building some models and maybe getting some awesome results. But things would be entirely different when you want to productize it. And when you want to productize it, you mostly think about the what action can be triggered out of the inference that your model is giving to you. And that point of time, you need to be very clear that how do you orchestrate your data along with the your model output. So typically, when we talk about the enterprise AI, it's about the business value that you are looking into the out of your data science experimentation, and not only the particular output of your model. And that business value you can get when you link that with your business processes. And business processes could be the either you are connecting that you're back to the ERP system, or you are connecting that back to the your chatbots, or you're connecting back that with the RPA. So when you bring those kind of connection to address the complete cycle, that's where we talk about the how the enterprise AI could be different than the normal AI, or doing some AI POC on your simple Jupyter notebook kind of a solution. So in order to achieve that, first definitely we need to understand that how should we manage the data. The data management part is important, where you get the right data and data getting from the source, and how do you need to orchestrate that data. Second part is that importantly, how do you manage your development? And in order to manage your development, you might need to use data science tool like the Jupyter notebook. You use your pandas, you have your Python libraries, or you need to also have the R libraries that would popularly used for doing the experimentation as well. But you also need to maintain the life cycle of your experimentation, registration of your open source and third parties. That's something that you're using. So you need to have the kind of a management environment where you're able to manage the complete experimentation part. And importantly, when it managed to the delivery or deployment part, that has to be the scalable enough. So today, let's say I'm doing it for one region or one city particular output, that has to be transformed into the, let's say, 10 cities, or maybe tomorrow across the 100 stores. And that's something should be the scalable approach, where I could use a similar experimentation or similar parameters that I'm using, could able to scale adopt the different data sets, and the experimentation should be able to scale up from that point of view. Nextly, we have to take advantage of intelligent information management, because unless we not look at that, how does we discover the data, it would be difficult for us to make the right assessment that what kind of experimentation that I am going to do. So from a discovery perspective, we would always wanted to get and look at the what are different data sources that are available. I need to have a tooling which could go into the directly to data source, get into the metadata management part of the data, look at the what kind of the structure data has, and then not only one data set, but there will the multiple data set coming across the different place. And that's where you need a tool like the where you can orchestrate the data and compose and create the pipeline. And this particular orchestration, where let's say you're getting data from 4 different data sources over the cloud, and these data sources could be either on-prem, you have something coming from cloud, whether something coming from social networking, but you should need some composition environment where you can create the pipeline and orchestration of the data. At the same time, you should be able to cleanse the data as well. So over the period of time, our tool also has to be improvised in order to cater the new kind of way of data which is coming up. I think we've been using quite traditionally the RDBMS, but now I think it has to be transformed to the different way of tooling as well. And importantly, the data that's something which is available has to be governed. So who should have access of the data, a data set that you are creating, and because this data would be coming from multiple sources, and what kind of compliance that you need to have. The data should be coming in the anonymized way of it. I should not have any private personal information. So we should have those checks and balances before we use that for experimentation. So that's where you have to leverage the intelligent information management tools that would support implementation as well. Importantly, when we now develop the foundation of what you think of the AI project, we need to think of as the streamlining the assembly part of it, right? So it's like a assembly for building the AI projects, where all the three personas, where it's a data engineer or your DevOps persona or your data scientist persona, all of them has to work together in order to generate the complete value of the solution. And the important part to the first thing to connect. So you could connect. You need to establish the connect with the structured data, unstructured data, or streaming data. Then you need to make the learning activities, which is predominantly the predominantly getting the orchestration part with the data. We need to have the data preparation, agile data preparation, machine learning experimentation done, as well as deep learning experimentation done. So we need to have infrastructure where you get the data, you are make your learning experimentation on the data, and this point of time, also data scientists would also have a good handshake with the data engineers directly, so not to work the data only based on the based on your Excel sheets that you are getting, but at the same time you try to get the real data coming from the system, which is orchestrated, cleansed, and which used for the machine learning experimentation or the deep learning creation of the model. Then you look from the scaling point of view. So you deploy the model and then monitor the model performance, and as well as also look at for the experimentation part of the model. And at some point of time, you also need to retire the model as well. So and that's where you look for the scaling part of the data life cycle here. And this data lifecycle scaling is as important as how do you build the complete flow where you're monitoring the performance of the model as well. So the only not the part that you create the model and you get the output, but model deployment and regularly validating the model performance, doing the explainability of the model, looking at the drift of the model on the regular part, and also looking at how does the KPI has been performing or not, the accuracy of the model on the period of time. That's something that need to be monitored and somewhat of a scale. The most important part of the picture is that you should be able to establish the consumption of your models, right? So once we have an output which has been coming up, this output has to be consumed in a certain way to either your business process automation, or you are setting that output the visualization for a business user that they could use for their purposes, or at the same time that could be the personalized interaction to your chatbot, or it's going back to your ERP system for triggering the additional process, or getting data back to your data sets. But it's very important that when you think the enterprise way, I don't believe that only doing the experimentation or scaling would solve your problem, but anything and everything that you build, it has to be a complete consumption-based model, where the output of your AI experiment has to lead to the triggering some business processes or adding the value. Otherwise, it would not be a very fruitful outcome, I would say. And if we follow this process, I think we are kind of giving the transparency to our DevOps team. Data scientists know what exactly we are doing, because now everyone is involved in the process and following the complete part. So from a persona point of view, everyone are kind of looking into the complete process. Let's look at one example that how can you achieve this with the predictive quality maintenance in the manufacturing plant, I would say. So typically in this example, we have three different diverse inputs which are coming up. So you have IR images which are coming here, and the problem that we are trying to solve here is we have the kind of manufacturing mold, maybe creating the piston or some kind of crankshaft, which are very minute part which coming out of the mold. But at the same time, when they are building it, you need to do the precision. Today, the current process is that someone is looking at it, measuring it, and passing, saying that this particular thing is right or wrong. But here we are trying to automate the process by putting the IR camera, which basically create the images and do the feature extraction from the image, saying that Yeah, the exact hole that need to be there, the precision of a dimension that it need to be built, it has been built in the right way, and that's something based on the machine learning model that has been built there. Then you have IoT data coming up here, which is from the pressure sensors, and say that the pressure applied on it, and it looks right. And also, both the data has to put in the context from the material master and the data that coming from the ERP, maybe talking about which material we are talking to, and also this data getting back to the system, and also is creating the predictive analytics here, saying that how this component has been more reliable while building it. In the current scenario, if your all the landscape data sets are not completely connected, what we see when you do the pressure sensor, which is basically IoT data, which is normally stored in the Kafka kind of environment, and then streaming data stored somewhere else. When you do your IR images comparison, which is machine learning, that typically you would maybe store in the Hadoop as a data store or the object store, and then you are doing the image processing on top of it, and then you need to do the predictive analytics to do some predictive application. Now all these environments are not connected, and unless you not have a kind of pipelining tool or data orchestration tool, you would always have this challenge of getting the silo output and not able to reach to the production ready solution where the solution has been built in the silo. Whereas we would suggest that to make it the event streaming, and as well as you create the pipelining for your data to bring it together, and then move it to the enterprise data center, which could make your the complete production grade solution, and at the real time you can able to influence it in a right way. And that's where we need to look forward for how do we break the silos and think from an assembly line point of view, where you are not only solving one problem, but you are trying to make how the end application would get impacted with this. Importantly, you have to embrace your open source technologies as well, and you have to take advantage of Kubernetes kind of environment where you have something scalable environment infrastructure that you get. So as you run on the different hyperscalers that you would like to bring it here, but at the same time the Docker and Kubernetes, or maybe mostly use the Kubernetes, which would be like agnostic across the hyperscalers, that could be best to utilize the environments which could help to scale the applications on the real time. At the same time, from the open source point of view, you could always look at how you can use the R, Python, which could be integratable into the Jupyter notebook to create your complete data science experience. And also the data that you need to curate is always to be look at the pipelining object, that how this data can be bringing together. And that's the way you could able to reimagine your business processes. How does we look at that, and also the model that should be that you use, that what you use that you pay for. So it should be the scalable if you are using the cloud, or also on the on-prem scalable infrastructure like Kubernetes. You could only scale it up as and when you need to use it, and not to block so much of resources from the first place as such there. In order to get started your journey, what we advise is you should have a comprehensive information management across your enterprises. That's something you should get started to get all your data sources connected at the same time. Next important part, that you look at the visualization part to build on those data sources, so you would know that how does your data sets are building up, and how does the data set would be relevantly work for you, and those data sets you could analyze that which data set would be useful for the initial experimentation for the machine learning use case, and the identification of the machine learning use case. That's something you should look at it here as well. Then we need to look the deployment of the machine learning and the deep learning into the production usage. That's something the next step that could be bring it up, where you could make the deployment of the machine learning models and make your pipelines ready, and then start your pilot projects. And last, and the important part that we are focusing on, how does you take the advantage and connect the process of the of the machine learning to back to the again business processes, and that's where you're able to take the actions on top of it there. So this is the way I would say that we need to think or overcome the challenges that AI feels from the technical point of view. And I have seen the projects being getting successful if you follow the complete path and not look at the one application at a time. Yep, that's from my side. Yes, back to you.